Keep your tweets coming in. I can see them coming in at K24 TV. Alicia Gasheri saying, Dania show Hadi Tamati, loving the discussion right there. We need to know if you're going to get this money or not. It's a key issue right there. Dylan Nyareki also saying good morning. Wakubwa tuko pamoja sana. Let's discuss those big issues. Rachel Jenga also saying a very big good morning. Loving the debate that's going on right there. Keep those tweets coming in at K24 TV as we discuss the big issues of the day. Before we take the break, we're talking about the repealing of the rate cap or not. Dr. Khalwale says that he feels that it should actually be removed and let the markets decide. But Gakuya still wants it in place. What was your rejoinder as far as that was concerned?
It is very important to look this matter on a bigger way. And if a monster is a monster in the house, you must think how to deal with the monster.
Right.
And the monster we are dealing with is interest capping. Interest capping, we have been in what we call borrowing business because I have come up with borrowing. And I know how tedious interest rates are, they are outside there. One thing, let me say, currently we have seen most of the borrowers turned to what we call mobile lenders. Mobile lenders. Yeah. And the reason why is that, in fact, there is no collateral asked from those mobile lenders.
Right.
And that's a very serious angle because at the end of the day, one must pay. At the end of the day, in one way but you have seen that, in fact, it's a very bad cycle that if you want to M-Pesa somebody, he tells you, no, don't M-Pesa.
It's a common phrase now.
Therefore, you realize that there is a problem. And to come out of this problem is that, in fact, I think the government should be the key to this particular embargo. And I can tell you for sure, if the government is completely to borrow locally, then we have seen the cure. Because the banks always takes the government as the alternative because there is no risk. Even though the loans are for 3 or 4 years, they are sure that their loans are safe and the payments will be done. But they are not very sure with the Wanjiko Mama Boga and whoever else down there in that particular. But when the government kisses and move out of this particular borrowing, the banks has no choice but to turn to the other SME clients.
Right. And
definitely they will give moderate rates and moderate rates of borrowing.
Okay.
Therefore, here the monster is the government.
Right.
Because the government, unless it moves out, then the SME will keep suffering to the end. And let me tell you, it is unfair when you find every quarter year, government, banks giving out what we call profits of 9 billion, 10 billion, out of this SMBP. So let me tell you, if real banks are getting profits to tune of 9 to 10 billion in a quarter, in a quarter year, my friend, they have sucked everybody to that level.
So, let me just, even as we're talking about that, because this should be down to the House for a vote next week, Tuesday, Majority Leader Duale is saying we cannot let down the President. The memorandum will pass. I'm certain those opposed to it will not go beyond 50 members from this particular...
No, I have no problem.
What's your success?
I have no problem.
What do you think will happen?
I am sure that, in fact, the government will do anything to make sure that this particular bill passes in the floor of the House. And maybe the other problem is that, in fact, at this particular juncture, it may be difficult to find numbers that are the tune of to that. So in one way or the other, there is a loophole there. That, in fact, the numbers may not enough to make it to that.
Right.
But if the membership of the House is are in what we call sympathy to the common monarchy.
Right.
This is a bill that, in fact, should be killed at that floor of the House.
Right.
And they should garner the 2/3 so that, in fact, the same monsters should not keep hunting Kenyans.
Right.
Because we are saying nobody is safe, including myself.
Right.
Yes.
And even as you talk about getting 2/3, that's a Herculean task for anyone to whip that number of MPs in the House. Muthuma, just finally, as you look, what's the success rate of this cap staying in place? As you can see, the government is behind it. Majority leader saying they will not let the president down. Do you have a scenario where the president has to eat humble pie and the cap remains?
No, honestly, I think when it comes to the floor of the House, I'm guessing, and I can see it from a distance, I think it may pass. Necessarily because of, again, what we've discussed about the government borrowing. To me, I think that is the Achilles heels in all this matter. But further than that, I think if it passes, what does that mean? Do we go back to the old predatory ways where you would get a loan and the banks come after you, the interest rates, you don't know how it's going today, it's, you know, and how will we go back? How will we ensure there's proper regulations? I know the banks have said, you know what, this time around we'll look at what we were not doing right, we will play by the rules. You know, how will central banks ensure that they play by the rules? So still that remains, like I've told you, the killers. But the other thing I think we need to do, Daktari had taken us back a little bit to the Moi Kibaki administration and how they played with the market back then. Now, you will realize two things happened at that particular point. From the bank-based economy, we had almost what you would call a finance-based economy, which led to a good marketing boom. How did this happen? You remember, even young people started being introduced to stocks. You remember?
Right. Yes.
IPOs. People would line up, you remember, to buy, you know?
Yes.
Virtue of that, people buying stocks in various companies. Those companies ended up working closer with the banks. People invested more. And the more you invest, the more people go to banks and the more they receive loans.
Yes.
All right? Apart from that, the more you invest in these companies, they grow by nature. If they are well managed, they grow. So that particular growth leads to more people getting employed.
Right.
All right? Because if you invest in a company like, let's say, Safaricom, they increase their coverage, all right? They reach so many people. How do they do that? As they're increasing their coverage, they're hiring people. They are hiring retailers. They are hiring people who are selling credit. They are hiring M-Pesa vendors. So that is how an economy grows, all right? But somewhere along the road, that market appetite or that investment appetite started dying out, all right? People are like, it's too risky, you know, how is this company managed? People start, you know, and the minute they start squeezing out, you end up in an environment where the banks now are almost like running the markets. Right. So we need to go back where we were. And to me, I think we need to focus more on a market that is so geared to selling, where people will invest. And how do you do that? Agro-processing, I still believe, Daktari, that is where our economy should be based. I mean, we have so many things that I believe we can export. That is what will make change. Because when you talk about major imports, and that's why I support the roads. Anytime people are talking about, you know, development, I am supporting infrastructure. You know why? Yes. Because it is an enabler, a very key enabler to business. Whether it's the expressway that you're talking about, and people have now started saying, they'll hive off Uhuru Park. I don't know what. First of all, you know, if you look at how that expressway is going, I don't think they'll take much of what people are saying, the Uhuru Park. I think, given the drawings that I've been able to see, and they've put them on the newspapers, Kenya is just using their road reserve all the way. And as it passes, the other thing that we should be talking about is how long did it take you from such areas to reach to a place like Westlands? When Thika Road was being done, people were complaining. But now, today, you have people who live in Thika, all right, who come to Nairobi for work. Some go as far as Makuyu and still come back. You know why they are able to commute? Because the road facility is there. Look at what has opened along that corridor. Same thing will happen if you open that route. Somebody from Mololongo will be able to have 2 meetings in this city. They can go somewhere and still be able to go to Westlands. Today, you cannot have 2 meetings in this city.
Okay.
You can have one.
You know, that particular one. Of course, I can see where you're going with this.
As we move along, as we open up the arteries, as we open up our corridors, right? We can expect the economy to grow. Okay. And when the economy grows, all these facets, whether it's banking, whether it's interest caps that we're talking about, whether it's a finance or a market-based economy, all these things will make sense. Going to what comes to the House of the Floor, yes, the bill may pass because the president vetoed it, and he actually wrote the points down, which are very clear and well understood. But at the end of the day, my concern, and I believe that of Daktari and that of Honorable, will be, how do you regulate banks?
Right. And you'll have this discussion, of course, even after the Tuesday vote to see how this plays out as far as the House is concerned. I want us to move to page 5 of our People Daily.
Really? Just one?
You have one more?
Yeah.
Because you threw a spanner into the works, and I thought that was where we are going with this. Okay, fine.
Oh, is it where we are going?
No, we are moving on to something different.
Please don't. Please don't. This is
What
so
we'll do,
important.
because we're
This
still
is
coming
so
back.
important.
As you give me the last,
Yeah.
what I just want to say is that, in fact, we also have other big problem. That also government is creating this problem. The two tiers of government. Because you find that, in fact, currently, this government is not paying the suppliers and contractors.
Right.
And let me tell you, assume that, in fact, majority of them has just borrowed from the banks to do the same contract. And it takes more than a year for you to be paid. Then you move back to the same route of uncapping. Then I find a big danger. Because these traders, you find them being auctioned at the end of the day. So then the government, as the pressure for these uncapping, they should also make sure that they are effective in making sure that, in fact, they have a prudent process of payment.
Right. So
so that people also, they don't tie people's money when also banks are pushing them.
Okay, very quickly, Dr. Khalwale, your point
Very
on this.
quickly, I want to appeal to members of parliament, and Mheshimiwa, you're here. In normal parliamentary practice, there is an important thing called lobbying. If you go to the House of Commons, or in the Congress in the US for that matter, you'll find that there is a lobbyist corner where people come with constructive ideas put in writing to support members of parliament to make a decision one way or the other. Please, the lobbying that is going on in Kenya is not lobbying. You guys are responding to things on social media, and pressure is created on you. When you follow up on the person behind that tweet, you might find that the guy is actually looking after goats. and is the one who is trying to push your agenda. Not that we don't respect them, but look, the critical numbers is 13% the corporate and 30% where the Shylock then kills the borrower. So what is better? To remove the cap at 13 so that banks can play between 13, 15, 20, 25, so as to protect the borrowers from those guys of 30, the Shylocks and so on. Speaking about populism and through social media and what have you, President Moi, he was approached by this same particular bill by Joe Donde.
Donde bill,
Yeah, he declined. It stayed on the shelves, and then again, Jacoya Midiwo took it up, the same bill, took it to Mwai Kibaki. Kibaki declined. Now, because of the populism and so on, and President Uhuru being a man of the people, he responded, said, oh, okay, let's give them. He has given you, you can see how it is hurting our people. Move away from populism and make law. And if you must be lobbied by solid people, like the kind of talk I'm hearing my brother Gabriel make here. If I was going to vote and you are talking to me that you are talking, I'll change my mind.
Okay.
But
And
at
of
the
course,
same time, I think
we shall wait for Tuesday to see how this goes, and then we'll
has
take it
mandate
from
also
there.
to make sure that they have also to control these Sylocos and these other electronic
Right, the mobile digital lenders.
so that at least
Yes.
everybody is under the
Under
control.
regulation.
yeah.
Okay, and of course, that's story will be keenly following, of course, as the vote is carried out next week. Let's quickly move on to page 5 of your People Daily. IBC to verify Taita Taveta's signatures right there. We've seen how it's played out as of now. Governor Granton Samboja, who last week survived an impeachment attempt after Senate dismissed a motion by the County Assembly, started the process of winding up the county more than 3 months ago following disagreements with the members of the County Assembly. Some inklings in here talking about the fact that it almost feels like the rain started beating Governor Granton Samboja when there was a disagreement between him and our Deputy President, William Ruto. That's where the rain started beating him. Dr. Khalwale?
Why me?
Let's why not?
Daktari was a senator.
Yeah.
I think he has front row advantage to actually explain to us this issue. I'm actually all ears to hear.
Yes,
because he may have the intrigues of what is happening.
When you see a governor put his office, put his government, and put his entire political future at stake, the way the governor of Taita Taveta has done, it means he's right. You'll remember Professor Kibwana
yes, did over the same.
Did the same. Yeah. And it has taken a while for us to realize that, not that members of county assemblies are not good people. They are very good people indeed. But it has taken us time to realize that had they sacrificed Professor Kivutha Kibwana, Makueni people would have lost out on the good leadership that Professor has eventually demonstrated. So Samboja could be knowing something that we don't know. And the fact that the Senate stood behind him in the recent impeachment motion in itself confirms that the county assembly is wrong and these people with signatures are wrong. I will not be surprised if this thing again goes nowhere. And by the way, they should not think it is a very exciting thing. The Constitution is very robust. It still gives the president a lot of leeway in ensuring that he saves the county government of.
What about in this scenario that, in fact, the president has handed over the signatures to the Electoral Commission to verify?
Because they're verifying it as we speak.
So that means the president, in one way, has given a go-ahead of the process.
No, that's a preserve of the president. Once the signature comes, the president has no way to do it anyway. He's just
it has to go to the IEBC.
So that is actually more of how things should trickle down. The case in point is there's two things to note. One, the county admins and MCS, they accused him of gross misconduct. When it came to Senate, the Senate looked at the whole thing and they were like, you know what, it cannot pass the threshold of impeachment, right? So the question is, what is going on? And Daktari has given us a very good example of what happened in Makueni. Is this the case of what we are seeing, the infighting between governors and MCS? And if it continues like this, what is the future of devolution? I still go back to leadership. Right? The common purpose of why people come together is so that a county like Taita Taveta can progress. You sit down to discuss issues that are affecting the county. The mannerisms that have had so many governors cry out, and you may remember Wambora. Wambora, every time if you met with him and you spoke to him, he will tell you how everybody was just looking out to hit him on money. All right? And if this is the idea we are going to present when it comes to county matters, we have lost it. Even Nairobi today, we are not in the clear. Beatrice Elachi is being fought right, left. The court reinstates her, and you wonder, what is happening? What is it that is making these counties so ungovernable? What should we change? What is the common denominator? All right? We must actually put up a lens and ask, are some of these governors under siege? Are some of these governors accountable? If they are accountable, all right, what are the measures that have been taken? All right? How do we hold even our MCAs accountable so that they do not keep, you know, I'm twisting governors when it comes to monies. And this is common knowledge. This is common knowledge. I'm not hitting on MCAs. Some are very great. I've met MCAs who actually have their pulse on the ground and they can tell you this is what this county is going through. This is what we are suffering from. Our governor is not being felt. Our governor has become a businessman. All they are thinking about is building hotels and I don't know what, because these are actually realities that are on the ground. So how do you go about this mosaic of problems to be able to ensure that, one, devolution continues to take root, and secondly, and most importantly, development machinery, because that is the reason as to why devolution exists.
I want to bring Honorable Gakuya in on this as well, because as Muthama put it, the reason why we had this whole issue of having the MCAs is to go closer to the grassroots, find out the actual problems. So what we're seeing now, and as we've seen very many governors talking about it, that it seems like it's almost ungovernable, because once the MCAs decide we want a foreign trip, we want, but nothing will happen in the county. How do we rein in these MCAs to make sure that work can still be done? Because once they decide you're not doing anything as Governor Gakuya, it comes to a halt.
The ball is with the Senate. Because the Senate is the instrument to handle or to control these county governments. And what should be done is to do a repeal in one of the bills that gives MCAs power to start that process. That process is a process which will be made harder so that even to impeach the governor is not just walk in, walk out. And I think, well, because surely you find that in fact the problem emanating is, one, there is no control under what we call ward development funds. Because I think if there can be an element on how there can be such kind of percentage of every other single ward, that there is that kind of project money for every single ward. Probably it's 5% or whatever percent. That one is well addressed. Number two, the appetite of MCAs, because we find that in fact these people, they also need money in their pockets. And I believe that in fact one thing is that in fact the MCAs, what they did do first is that in fact they also go to mortgage. And once somebody moves to mortgage, is like actually whatever he earns actually goes to that particular mortgage. Then you find that these people do not have even fuel to fuel their vehicles. And they have to give the governor pressure so that they can have something in their pocket. I think that in that particular aspect, governor has a difficult way, because there is no way you can be able to increase their allowance beyond the control of SRC. So it's an embargo by itself. But I am sure that in fact, if the Senate can bring mechanism on how to make it difficult for them to impeach governors, it can be a better election.
So you feel it's a higher threshold that needs to be put
I think there should be a higher threshold so that in fact it doesn't become obvious that in fact they can walk in and bring a motion, and a motion is passed in a popular motion, and that becomes it.
You had
you had asked me a very fair question in reference to the deputy president and his fallout with this governor.
Governor Samburu.
I think we must understand that point by remembering what it is that the deputy president said. The deputy president said in September this year that we cannot allow personal differences between MCAs and the governor to reside in dissolution of a county government. And he was right. He said, instead of this governor rushing to Nairobi to come and look for some solutions in Nairobi, somebody should sit down, his arm of government, the executive, to sit with the legislative arm of the county government, and they agree. Why? Because my colleagues who are here know very well that there are only 4 things. Zenye zinakera all MCAs across the Republic. And Senate can actually sort it out. The first one is foreign trips. The second one is house mortgage. The third one is car allowance. And the fourth and last one is ward development fund. All these things can be sorted out by the Senate. In fact, I want to congratulate the senator from Ranga, not Mwengo area, Kangata. He's the only one who has moved and drafted a bill to try and legalize ward development fund. This is the way to go. I don't see why it is difficult for the Senate to make legislation to provide for all these things so that governors cannot be in perpetual quarreling with the members of the county assemblies. So I want to stand by what the deputy president said, that this matter should be sorted out through a boardroom sitting between the legislative arm of the county government of Taita Taveta and the executive arm. That's what he said. It was nothing personal about Samboja.
We'll take a short break at that particular point in time. And we're back with the third leg as far as our newspaper review is concerned. The 2 issues we're looking at, of course, we have the country's debt, driving Kenya to the tipping point as far as the Daily Nation is talking about. And then bring it closer home because November 7th is going to be D-Day in Kibra. And, of course, talk from there. ODM SG. ODM will dump NASA after Kibra poll, says Sifuna right there. We talk about that, of course, and plenty more after the break.